Hi, welcome to Barros Productions. I'm Marie, and we're going to be doing something a little different today. Normally, when it's me here or I'm with my sister Samantha, we're doing reactions of some sort. I do trailer reactions by myself, and my sister and I did some Spider-Man reactions. However, today I'm going to be talking to you as an author instead. So, a few years ago, I published my first book. It's a series called Ghostlife, and the first one is entitled The Underworld. It is a supernatural time travel fantasy book, and I'm working on the sequel right now. A few weeks ago, I attended this event in Toronto called Word on the Street, and there I met tons of incredible authors. I got to buy some of their books, talk to them about their process, and how it is that they do some marketing. And one of the people that I talked to was Jason Shannon. Jason is the author of several books, including The Zimmer Insurgency, The Hounds of Origin, and Tiger Blues. Just recently, I got the pleasure of going on his podcast and we recorded an episode together. It was a lot of fun to do this. We talked about our process in writing, if we get writer's block, how do we plan out our series ahead of time, or do we just go with the flow? We also talked about my series, Ghost Life. How do I plan it out? What is coming up next a little bit? Some hints about that as well. We talked about what kind of time travel is included, what kind of supernatural things are included, and what sort of journey does my main character go through. We also talked about a little bit about some things that might be set up for the sequel. And I also dropped some hints about another book that I'm working on, a standalone romantasy called Forevermore. I'm including a clip of our episode so you can get a little taste of what we talked about, and I'll include a link down below so you can watch the entire thing. If you'd like to buy a copy of Ghost Life the Underworld, there will be a link in the description down below to where you can purchase an ebook or a paperback from Amazon. I'll also be linking Jason's socials so you can check out all of his work and subscribe to him. He is absolutely amazing.
I always like a good time travel one. This one, I haven't had the chance to read your book yet, but from what I can tell from your Amazon and your Goodreads, it's right off the bat you've got the pyramids on the front cover. So
Yeah.
and your main character here is accepted into like a mysterious school and then goes on to a journey of her own. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the idea was that particularly with this first one, there's a lot more focus on the supernatural part, and that's sort of what this school is. So my main character, Vera, she gets accepted into this school called Black Rose Academy, and she unknowingly does. She doesn't know at first that it's basically a school to train ghost hunters. She finds out when she gets there, and she basically this world itself, the lore, I guess, behind how you get those sorts of powers is if you experience a situation where you have like sort of died and been brought back, so like by medical ways, when you come back, it's like now you can see beings from like the world of the dead. So you can see ghosts and demons and things like that. And now she's in a school to train that. And so when she's there, she starts receiving these mysterious letters that are written in a completely different language. And she starts to make some friends and they're trying to figure out what's going on. And that leads to her discovering a friend, one of the friends that she makes, his father invented a time machine. And they realize that this time machine is tied to these ghost wars that had happened. That's what they call them, the ghost wars. So there were basically times in the past where like ghosts or demons were trying to take over, and these hunters had to get together and defeat them. And now they're on the brink of possibly a third one. And somehow they're like, oh, how is time travel going to fit in there? And so what I wanted was to sort of pick a setting for each book. So for the first one, I picked Egypt. And so there's going to be events that happen in Egypt that then sort of correlate to what's happening in present day. So and what was fun actually about writing that was In the first place, I wanted to, just to talk about the series as a whole, I wanted to make sure that everything made sense as I was writing it because I wanted to foreshadow a lot of stuff. And so with time travel, I had to end up making like several different timelines and sort of plan the entire series out ahead of time. And so for this first one, it's a lot of, I would say, a lot of, world building. There's a lot of establishing. So, what are the rules of time travel, and what are the rules of the supernatural in this? And for me, I'd say a staple in my writing as well is I like to really focus on the personal journey of the main character. So, we really draw on themes of, grief and how to start living your life on your own terms and not letting that take over. And so that's a really big part of her journey as well.
That sounds very interesting. A few things to spin off of that. So, what made you want to work with the time travel angle? Was that just something you always wanted to work in there?
Yeah, I mean, I've always really enjoyed time travel. And I'd say that originally, when I first came up with the idea, it was just like ghosts. And that was the first thing that I associated it with. And the time travel part came in actually when I took a world history course and I was learning about all of this really interesting stuff and not just like the historical parts of what happened in places like Egypt and Greece and Rome and all of those other places. It was also seeing how these like this history was affected by their own specific what's the wording I'm looking for here? Their own specific like myths and stuff. So it was fun to hear about that. And when I did, I was thinking about my characters that I had come up with, and I was like, how cool would it be if they weren't just fighting like supernatural beings in the present, but also fighting some that were in these ancient civilizations as well, and seeing how like the difference, like in like the difference between the lore of like having mummies in Egypt or then having like the Greek gods, which is the next one's gonna be in Greece. That's why I'm referring to that. And having them learn about all that too. Because one thing that I found when I was doing a lot of research is like the play on a lot of these supernatural beings are affected by where their lore originates from. And so drawing on that from around the world was, I think, an interesting sort of intersection. And then later, I'd say the time travel afforded me a really interesting relationship to play with like the hero and the villain. So like in this book, for instance, when my main character Vera meets the main villain, Gus is his name. It's the first time she's meeting him, but he already knows who she is because he has a whole other history that we haven't experienced yet because they're going to be living the events of this series out of order with each other. And so I thought that with having time travel, I was like that would afford a really interesting relationship with a hero and a villain.
Yeah, for sure. I'll come back to that idea in one second because I've got some thoughts there. But just touching on what you said a little bit ago about Vera has to sort of come to terms with living life on her own terms and defining life in her own way. Again, I have not read your book, so I'm just taking a guess here. But since you're working with time travel and you mentioned like different timelines that kind of branch off, is there themes in there of like predestination, or she has to sort of forge her own path or define her own fate in that way?
Absolutely. Something that I wanted to make sure was with like the rules of time travel. Because there's different kinds. There's cause to effect where kind of like Back to the Future where you can change the past. And then there's things like a paradox, sort of like Terminator, where it's everything was always meant to happen. And so I played around with the idea of a paradox so that everything that happens was always meant to happen. And with having ghosts in there, for Vera, she obviously experienced her own traumas in life. And so the first thing you hear when you hear time travel is you're like, can I go back and change that? Can I go back and save this person? And when you hear no, like it was always supposed to happen, that's something that she has to grapple with. And definitely, I'd say on a personal note, like her sort of moving past her own inner demons and deciding, oh, how this is a maybe a baby step of how I can start living a better life, is definitely going to affect the way that she deals with things like that coming up in the future.
Very interesting. Now you mentioned that the hero, like your hero and your villain, he's already aware of her because of his own backstory and how they've met at previous times, and the story is kind of being told out of order with how the timelines come together. I imagine that must be very difficult to have planned out from the beginning there. You mentioned it's gone through a few revisions, but with six books in the series, or initially planned six books in the series, did you find it difficult to sort of storyboard this whole thing? And do you have like all the way to the end kind of plotted out and you're just rearranging things like chronologically to make them fit, or how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge. I ended up having to sort of write out a visual timeline of three of them actually. I had one for how the order in which like Vera will experience things, one for the villain Gespenet, how it is the order in which he experiences it, and then a chronological one of like how basically anyone else is from like an outsider point of view, how they would experience it from like the earliest time period, which would probably be this the Egypt part, to the very end, which would be like the last book. And seeing how that all intersects. And yeah, there's definitely been times where I've gone back and been like, oh no, this has to happen before this because this person has to act this way. And yeah, it's been a bit challenging. Like in between like writing this one, because this one initially came out in 2021, so it's been a while. And outside of like personal stuff, yeah, I definitely had to rework a few things to make sure that everything made sense. But yeah, it was definitely a challenge. And for me, like what I did was is I didn't want to have every single little thing planned out. I want to allow room for myself as a writer to like have fun while I'm writing it and come up with new things. But there were definitely like I'd say key moments that I had written out and I was like, okay, when do I want, for instance, this character to experience this thing? Or when do I want this certain confrontation to happen or this certain character death to happen? And so those are all cemented and definitely planned out for all six. So it's like I almost have like a list of things that are like, this is unchangeable. This is what's going to happen no matter what in the series. But yeah, I'd say it's kind of a mix of both. Like there's a lot that's planned out and a lot that's cemented, but there's still a lot of room to play in there. So there, that was a little snippet of what we did. If you'd like to see more of me talking about writing or my novels or some of the ideas that are in Ghost Life, let me know in the comments down below. This might be a new thing that we do on the channel along with everything else. In the meantime, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see some of the other content. Right here, I'll put the trailer that I made for Ghost Life the Underworld, to kind of give you a taste of what it's going for. And over here, I'll put some of our reaction videos that we've done on the channel. So if you're into the supernatural, time travel, fantasy, or all of the above, check out Ghost Life the Underworld and let me know what you think, okay? I'll see you next time. Bye.